an Australian Phoenix production series 1. The History of Lebanon. Phoenicia, as an ancient civilization in Canaan which covered most of the western, coastal part of the Fertile Crescent. Several major Phoenician cities were built on the coastline of the Mediterranean. The coastal plain of Lebanon is the historic home of a string of coastal trading cities of Semitic culture, which the Greeks termed Phoenicia, whose maritime culture flourished there for more than 5,000 years. Ancient ruins in Byblos, Beirut, Sidon, Sarafand, and Tyre show a civilized nation, with urban centers and sophisticated arts. Present-day Lebanon was a cosmopolitan center for many nations and cultures. During the Middle Ages, Lebanon was heavily involved in the Crusades. Lebanon was in the main path of the First Crusade's advance on Jerusalem. Later, Frankish nobles occupied present-day Lebanon as part of the southeastern Crusader states. The southern half of present-day Lebanon formed the northern march of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. The northern half was the heartland of the county of Tripoli. Muslim control of Lebanon was re-established in the late 13th century under the Mamluk sultans of Egypt. Lebanon was later contested between Muslim rulers until the Ottoman Empire solidified authority over the eastern Mediterranean. The Ottoman Turks formed an empire starting from the 14th century which came to encompass the Balkans, Middle East and North Africa. During the conflict between the Mamluks and the Ottomans, the emirs of Lebanon linked their fate to that of Ghazali, the Basha of Damascus. He won the confidence of the Ottomans by fighting on their side at Marjabak and, apparently pleased with the behavior of the Lebanese emirs, introduced them to Sultan I when he entered Damascus. Sultan I, moved by the eloquence of the Lebanese ruler Emir Fakhr ad-Din, 1516-44, decided to grant the Lebanese emirs a semi-autonomous status. The Ottomans, through two great Druze feudal families, the Mums and the Shahabs, ruled Lebanon until the middle of the 19th century. The Mums, 1120 to 1697 under orders from the Basha of Damascus, came to Lebanon in 1121 against the invading Crusaders. They settled on the southwestern slopes of the Lebanon mountains and soon adopted the Druze religion. Authority began to rise with Fakhr al-Din I, who was permitted by Ottoman authorities to organize his own army, and reached its peak with Fakhr al-Din II. The Shahabs, 1697 to 1842, succeeded the Mums in 1697. They originally lived in the Horn region of southwestern Syria and settled in Wadi al-Ta'im in southern Lebanon. The most prominent among them was Bashir Shahab II, who was much like his predecessor, Fakhr al-Din II. The 19th century. During the 19th century, the town of Beirut became the most important port of the region, supplanting Acre further to the south. This was mostly because Mount Lebanon became a center of silk production for export too. The rise and fall of Emir Bashir II. In 1788, Bashir Shahab would rise to become the emir. Born into poverty, he was elected emir upon the abdication of his predecessor, and would rule under Ottoman suzerainty, being appointed Wali or governor of Mount Lebanon, the Bekaa Valley and Yatnabal Ottomil. Together this is about 2/3 of modern-day Lebanon. Bashir II was overthrown as Wali when he backed Acre and fled to Egypt, later to return and organize an army. Jumblat gathered the Druze factions together, and the war became sectarian in character, the Maronites backing Bashir II, the Druze backing Bashir Jumblat. Jumblat declared a rebellion, and between 1821 and 1825 there were massacres and battles, with the Maronites attempting to gain control of the Mount Lebanon district, and the Druze gaining control over the Bekaa Valley. In 1825 Bashir II defeated his rival and killed him after the Battle of Al-Simkhaniya. The discontent grew to open rebellion. Fed by both Ottoman and British money and support, Bashir II fled. The Ottoman Empire reasserted control, and Mehmed Husrev Pasha, whose sole term as Grand Vizier ran from 1839 to 1841. European powers began to intervene in 1860. This would boil back into full-scale sectarian war, when the Maronites began openly opposing the power of the Ottoman Empire. Another destabilizing factor was France's support for the Maronite Christians against the Druze, which in turn led the British to back the Druze, exacerbating religious and economic tensions between the two communities. The Druze took advantage of this and began burning Maronite villages. The Druze had grown increasingly resentful of the favoring of the Maronites by Bashir II, and were backed by the Ottoman Empire and the Wali of Damascus in an attempt to gain greater control over Lebanon. The Maronites were backed by the French, out of both economic and political expediency. The Druze began a military campaign that included the burning of villages and massacres, while Maronite irregulars retaliated with attacks of their own. The French forces deployed there were then used to enforce the final decision. The French accepted the Druze as having established control, and the Maronites were reduced to a semi-autonomous region around Mount Lebanon, without even direct control over Beirut itself. The province of Lebanon that would be controlled by the Maronites, but the entire area was placed under direct rule of the governor of Damascus, and carefully watched by the Ottoman Empire. It is estimated that more than 4,000 Christians were killed in the conflict, with another 4,000 dying of destitution. Furthermore, more than 100,000 were made homeless. Rising prosperity and peace. The remainder of the 19th century saw a relative period of stability, as Islamic, Druze and Maronite groups focused on economic and cultural development, which saw the founding of the American University of Beirut and a flowering of literary and political activity associated with the attempts to liberalize the Ottoman Empire. In the approach to World War I, Beirut became a center of various reforming movements, and would send delegates to the Arab-Syrian Conference and Franco-Syrian Conference held in Paris. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, the League of Nations mandated the 5 provinces that make up present-day Lebanon to the direct control of France. Initially, the division of the Arabic-speaking areas of the Ottoman Empire were to be divided by the Sykes-Picot Agreement. However, the final disposition was at the San Remo Conference of 1920, whose determinations on the mandates, their boundaries, purposes and organization was ratified by the League in 1921 and put into effect in 1922. The French mandate for Syria and the Lebanon was a League of Nations mandate founded after the First World War and the partitioning of the Ottoman Empire. During the 2 years that followed the end of the war in 1918, and in accordance with the Sykes-Picot Agreement that was signed between Britain and France during the war, The British held control of most Ottoman Mesopotamia, modern Iraq, and the southern part of the Ottoman Syria, Palestine and Jordan, Zendreta and other portions of southeastern Turkey. The French Mandate of Syria lasted until 1933, when two independent countries emerged from the Mandate period, Syria and French troops left Syria and Lebanon finally in 1946. Lebanon gained independence in 1933. General Henry Dents, the Vichy High Commissioner for Syria and Lebanon, played a major role in the independence of both nations. The Vichy authorities in 1941 allowed Germany to move aircraft and supplies through Syria to Iraq, where they were used against British forces. Britain, fearing that Nazi Germany would gain full control of Lebanon and sent its army into Syria and Lebanon, all visited the area. Under various political pressures from both inside and outside Lebanon, de Gaulle decided to recognize the independent authority of the Free French government. Elections were held in 1933, and on November 8, 1933, the new Lebanese government unilaterally abolished the Mandate. The French reacted by throwing the new government into prison. In the face of international pressure, the French released the government officials on November 22, 1933, and accepted the independence of Lebanon. The Allies kept the region under control until the end of World War II. The last French troops withdrew in 1946. Lebanon's history from independence has been marked by alternating periods of political stability and turmoil interspersed with prosperity built on Beirut's position as a freely trading regional center for finance and trade. Beirut became a prime location for institutions of international commerce and finance, as well as wealthy tourists, and enjoyed a reputation as the Paris of the Middle East until the outbreak of the Lebanese Civil War.